Hi everyone, my name's Archie, my pronouns are he, him, and I am the union president for this year. And I'm going to be talking through the questions I received from the Scrutiny committee a couple of weeks ago. So the first question is around the overwhelming responsibility given to me in the absence of the wellbeing officer, what projects will be wrapped up in time for the next officer, and which projects will need to be continued next year. Just to preface, I did give Scrutiny a full breakdown of all my manifesto points and projects, which did have more detail on which projects would be completed and which need to be handed over. So in this answer, I'm going to talk a little bit about where am I going to be handing over to and what projects. So it's not really been a surprise that this year's not really been a normal one, especially for someone in the president role. In the summer, we had no CEO and a brand new chair to the board. We lost quite a significant number of staff members, and obviously, relating to the question, we also lost one of our executive officers, the wellbeing officer. So in that time, I worked really closely with our Director of Membership Services, and a lot of staff also looked to myself and the Director of Membership Services for guidance on what we should do during this transition period. Over that period of summer up until September, my priority was the operational running of the union and the organisation as a whole, until we had more capacity both in staff and also our CEO. So it was quite difficult to hit the ground running with projects as such in that period of time. With that being said, I'm remarkably proud of the progress I've made on my manifesto points and extra projects this year, which I mentioned before. I have outlined to Scrutiny in a separate report. In that report, I did mention that 86% of my manifesto points and extra projects will be completed by the time I leave office. But there are some projects that need to be completed by some of the incoming officers, of which I'll hand over in the handover month of June. And there are 7 projects in total that will need to be handed over. So for the union president, I'll be handing over the operational excellence work that we've started, the Student Futures Manifesto, which should be released before I leave, but in case there's any bumps in the road. The Cost of Living Action Plan, which will always be an ongoing project for anyone in that role, and the Governance Review implementation. For the Community and Wellbeing Officer, I'll be handing over the development of social study spaces, the de-stress space potentially coming into the library, the Cost of Living Action Plan, as well as the President, and women's only gym spaces. And for the Sports and Societies Officer, I'll be handing over the women's only gym spaces as above. So hopefully that gives a brief overview of why it's been overwhelming this year, and talk to what projects I need to hand over, but the remainder of my projects should be completed. If anyone wants to know more detail about what projects they are, please do check my manifesto. It should still be on the union website. My second question was around the Student Futures Manifesto, and once that's made live, where will it be posted, and how do we plan on publicising this to as many students as possible? So for a bit of context, the Students' Futures Manifesto is a piece of work led on by the university's academic registrar, Nuala Devlin, in co-creation with myself as union president. And this is something that's come about from the OFS, the Office for Students, for all universities to complete to allow for a more holistic experience when navigating the welcome period for new starters, as well as what can be expected by students each year of their study. So a lot of emphasis from a lot of universities is focusing on when you arrive as a first year and then your graduation. So this manifesto really sets the expectations of what you should expect each year and what you can hold the university to account for. The objective for Leicester was to outline the key themes and promises that we all present to students, in return for students acknowledging the need for two-way reciprocation of these objectives. During this, we worked extremely closely with the union and the university marketing and communications team to ensure that we can effectively communicate this to all students and not just incoming undergrads or prospective students. So some of the things that we're going to be doing, every new starter will be provided with the information of the Student Futures Manifesto before they arrive at Leicester, so they can understand the expectations and the reality of being a student at Leicester. It'll also be showcased in detail on open days, so we're extremely clear to parents and prospective students about what they should expect at Leicester and what is expected of them. It'll also be disseminated through the regular means of communication at Leicester, so through the Citizen, social media, introductory lectures, website presence, and so on and so forth. All information will be articulated each year of study, and this will hopefully be at the very beginning of the year. So if you've moved into your second year, it will be reiterated in that first week what you should expect and what's expected of you. And there'll also be videos in collaboration with the university senior management. So I or Jade, depending on when we're able to do this, we'll sit down and do like a hot desk kind of discussion topic on this, which will be live for all students to come and watch. So hopefully that touches on some of the things that I will be doing in order to release this information to as many students as possible. My third question was around trialling officer hours during semester 2, as there's been a lack of progress of this. So to answer that question, it's not officer hours, so it's not me, it's office hours for the union as a whole, and there is a slight difference there. The idea was to allow each student-facing department to have specific hours of which they would be available for students to come and ask questions and all the usual kind of queries or misunderstandings that a student might have around their academics, if they're a course rep, around what their role is, all the committees, etc. And although this was agreed in principle by the senior leadership team at the union, trials have not taken place for a number of reasons. We've had a capacity issue within our staff team in our management due to unforeseen circumstances. So our voice and activities department have had varying reasons why this may not have been completed. Our activities department had the manager had a period of absence, and for voice we haven't been able to hire our deputy manager for advice, so a lot of his time has been spent with advice as well. So there's never really been the right time to implement this. As well, our HR manager has been on maternity leave, who would usually do all the HR processes like this. So because of this, we tailored the option slightly. The executive team and the department, student-facing department leads and managers, came up and proposed that we would have people on front of house desk, essentially a reception desk, and student staff, and which will be covered between 10 till 4 every single day. And because of this, students can come in and be more relaxed and not feel like it's such a hostile environment when going to speak to a department. And those on the front desk have been trained to answer queries and point in the right direction. So we've been able to change the way we've done it slightly, but I am still hoping that for next year Jade will be able to implement the office hours, as I've mentioned. And finally, what measurable progress can be made, or how much work is being put in to advance the complete set projects before exiting the role, rather than making closures and preparations for the oncoming president. They also noted that this is to see where my efforts are being currently allocated from my point of view. So if I've understood this correctly, it's talking about how I'm basically finishing my job. And I'm going to start by saying for the president role, it's crucial that the handover is thorough and consistent over the month of June. So now, filming this on the 30th of April, a lot of my work is going to be going into that handover. Obviously, it doesn't take 7 or 8 hours all day, every day, but aside from my usual meetings, I will be pushing for the projects listed above as far as they can go, when I mentioned in the first question. But I want to make sure that Jade having an effective handover is the top of my priorities. And as she is a returning officer moving into the president role, she will already be fully aware of all my projects and where they're up to and what needs to happen, which makes it easier on both of us. So to break it down, my workload is probably looking at 50% daily work from meetings, emails, queries, questions, etc., papers to read, to produce. 30% will be handover preparation, and then 20% will be projects. And obviously, as I mentioned, it's a month until handover, so handover really will start to take priority the later we go into the month. that's the answer to all my scrutiny questions. As always, if anyone has any additional questions, please either come find me in the office or send me an email at su-president@le.ac.uk. Thank you very much. Thanks.